come. This is Jet. This is Jet's roadmap to success. How about a sit? Sit. Whenever you hear the treat should go in the mouth first, and when they're learning, they should hear the command word immediately after. Now, once the dog learns, then you would just reward them with a pet or the treat just for like this. Come here. Come here, Jet. Come here. Get down. Jet. Sit. Well, he might not have the verbal cue. Sit. So when he sits, then I reward him by petting him or giving him the treat. And then and he's learning, I would still say the command word after. So for him, I might say it for about a month until, the way you want to check and see if the dog has a verbal cue is dogs can read lips. So if Jet's sitting here, let's say he's standing, I would go like this and say sit. If I turn and look and he did sit, then I know he has the verbal cue. If he didn't, probably doesn't have it. Most of us, sit, good boy. Well, then evidently good boy is the command word to sit. That's how do we say it when we say good boy, but it actually confuses the dog. So, all right. So this is your roadmap to success, buddy. So let's, we're going to kind of summarize what we talked about. So there's kids in the house, and the video above really is a good video on all sorts of tips you can use if you have children in the house, especially the children don't like dogs don't like being touched by the children. So please watch that video above if you have any questions about that. The rest of the stuff we talked about was really structural changes and really the day-to-day routine to make sure that Jet is in a position to succeed. So most dogs are under-exercised. Jet's guardian does a great job of taking him for a run, and it's a long run. The problem is dogs sleep, a dog his size probably sleeps about 15, 16 hours a day. When he's asleep, he's recharging his batteries, then he wants to go again. And then he exercises a little bit for an hour, and then he sleeps, and then recharges the battery. So all day long, so it's kind of a cycle instead of one long, like for us, I work out once in the morning and I'm good all day long. Dogs need it multiple times throughout the day. Crash, he just laid down. All right, and so it's past the train. We'll talk about that in a minute. So basically, I would recommend still doing the run, but we need to supplement it with some other things. And so I went over some creative forms of exercise. So one of the things is the doggy stairmaster. Make sure you exercise with your dog with an empty stomach. And remember, anytime the treat goes in the mouth, they should hear the command word immediately after in the learning process. So for the doggy stairmaster, with an empty stomach, I go to the top of the stairs, show Jet that I have a treat. When he's looking at me, I throw the treat to the bottom of the stairs. When he runs downstairs and licks it up, the second he licks it up, I say the word Jamaica or Cabo or whatever the word is that goes down the stairs. I'd like you to, cutting edge dog training is to use fun command words because dogs can read facial expressions. So if you say crash, like I just did when he laid down, and I say crash and my dog flops down, most people laugh, and that causes the dog to be motivated to want to do that. And we have kids in the house, kids who know dogs are far less likely to tease them. I don't think these kids are going to tease the dog, but their friends might. And if their friends say, hey, Jet's got all these cool words, probably less likely to have that happen. So one of the things I'd like you to do is I'd like you to make a list of the official command words. And if you're not sure of what it is, if you haven't signed one yet, or there's new trick or command, have the kids come up with some suggestions. Don't let them name it outright. Just say, hey, I want you to think of one, and you to think of one, and you tell mom and dad, and we get to decide who the actual word is. But if they're associated with coming up with the command words, that can really help them be more engaged with the dog, and again, that cool factor. So anyway, Cabo means go down the stairs, and maybe Santa's place means go up the stairs. I usually prefer one-word commands, but that'll work. And so you throw the treat down, he licks up, you say Cabo, show him you have another treat, runs the top and give it to him, and say Santa's. And then throw it down, and again. The first time you do it with an empty stomach, keep doing it until he's like, you're crazy. I've been down there 48 times. I'm not going down there anymore. Now we know the maximum number. We want to exercise usually 50 to 75%. But I like you to be proactive, like I talked about in the video above, instead of reactive when it comes to exercise. If the dog is naughty, it is barking, it's jumping up, it's stealing kids' food, or being rowdy in some way, shape, or form, ask yourself, how long has it been since the dog has done the exercise? If it's longer than an hour, the dog's probably bored or needs some stimulation. So if you start interpreting that way, oh, I'm going to take him to the stairs and do the doggy stairmaster, or one of these other things I'm going to talk about real quick, that puts him in a position to succeed. You took care of his needs, so instead of him knocking the kids down, you exercise me, and I'm going to go lay on the dog bed for a little while. And one other thing for him, I forgot to mention in the video above, try to work in once a day where he gets an hour that he gets to go away from the kids and just recharge his batteries, preferably in the middle of the day, or in the middle of interacting with the kids. And so that he needs a little bit of alone time and downtime for himself, just like mom and dad do and I do and everybody. We need some time to reset our jets. Okay, so let me see. Other forms of so the doggy stairmaster one is a great one because you can do it, and remember, 5 minutes on the doggy stairmaster is equivalent to like a half an hour, 45-minute walk. But you can do it anytime you want. Before guest comes over, maybe he needs 10 up downs on the stairs. Maybe before a walk, he needs 5 up downs on the stairs. Maybe before the kids eat and we're trying to get him to stay behind an invisible boundary, maybe it's 22 up downs on the stairs. So keep on trying different amounts of all these exercises, and then in concert with what's going on next, and then see how he does. Was it enough exercise to make him put him in position to succeed, or do you need more, or do you need to get too much? We don't want to find that Goldilocks amount. Okay, so for the doggy stairmaster is one. The other one we could do is scent games, which is just really taking treats like this and just hiding it next to the couch, next to the TV stand, just really easy places, and then call the dog in so he didn't see where you put him. Every time he looks it up, say booty or treasure or whatever the word is. And so that becomes a command word. And so eventually he comes inside, you say booty. He's like, oh shoot, there's 10 treats around here, snap. And he's running around looking for the treats using his nose. Remember, the nose is very draining. It burns more energy on a walk to let the dog sniff than it does from walking. So scent games is a great way to burn energy and to preoccupy him. You can do that when the kids are eating a snack, so he's got something else to do. Also on walks, make sure we let the dog sniff as much as possible. Now Jet likes to sniff. The other dog, Sadie, does not. She's an older dog. And part of it might be arthritis. It could have been she's a rescue dog. The guardians, a lot of people get frustrated. The dog wants to sniff on a walk. We snap that leash or jerk, which we really shouldn't do. But we should let our dogs sniff because that's what we're trying to accomplish, is let them drain that energy. It's also calming, stimulating, and comforting and relaxing for the dog. So there's a lot of benefits to letting your dog sniff. So on a walk, really, I'd suggest you walk for distance, or excuse me, duration, rather than completing a circuit. So I'm going to walk this way for 10 minutes if I've got 20 minutes for the walk. At 10 minutes, I cross the street and I walk back for we have fresh sniffs. I'm only making 4 houses down the block. I don't care because my goal is not to walk around a circuit. It's just a duration. Now for Sadie, remember, get that finely shredded cheese and go out ahead of your walk and put a little bit on this side of the driveway, and then after the next driveway, put a little bit on this side of the sidewalk. And so just kind of on either side of the sidewalk, and sometimes at first on the sidewalk itself. But when we get in the grass, that causes her to have to kind of work to get it, and now she's sniffing the ground, and that's a calming thing, and that's what she should be doing. So it's a nice way to kind of help a dog get back to doing that. So you go out ahead of the walk and you put them on different places, and then you take her out and you lead her directly where those places are at first. Eventually she'll start sniffing the ground looking for it. And remember, sniffing, let her sniff as much, don't get frustrated by it, that's what we're looking to do. Other things that we could do is feeding out of a make-a-paw treat ball or a snuffle mat, which I'd recommend you get for the dogs. And then, let me see, you can play fetch. She doesn't like to play fetch, but you can even maybe have one of the kids at the top of the stairs and one of the kids at the bottom of the stairs and just call them a recall exercise. It's a version of the doggy stairmaster, but this one we're adding a bonus where the dog comes to the child who calls it. So if I listen to the child, I get rewarded. That makes the child a little bit more important, having a little bit more authority, and it helps the dog practice listening to the child, which is beneficial. So the idea is to come up with some creative forms of exercise. So the snuffle mat and Omega Paw treat ball are just something we're adding on to eating. So we're going to do that twice a day with each dog anyways. We throw in a doggy stairmaster once or twice a day. We do the doggy or the scent games once or twice a day. We go for the walk in the morning. Now we can put these every 2 to 4 hours and really set the dog up for success. Also, before guest comes over, before an activity that you know the dog has trouble with, get them that right amount of exercise. And if they're naughty, think about it as needing exercise. Okay, so we also talked about the dog psychology as well as the importance of rules. Dogs go through life probing, waiting for the leader to tell them that's too far. Then they come back and circle around and test again and test again. And if you're consistent enough times in a row, the dog's like, okay, I'm not supposed to cross that line. Problem is we are very inconsistent. And this causes the dog to probe more and more. And we take it personally. We think the dog's being defiant when really it's how they learn. They're waiting for us, expecting us to say no at some point. So if we don't have any rules, dog sees us as a peer. So before I get to the rules, I want to suggest some dog psychology items. Anything your dog is doing behaviorally when you pet your dog is what you're going to reinforce. Pet a barking dog, he's going to bark more, jumping up, excited, whatever it is. Now, it doesn't apply for unbalanced states of mind, which for years I thought was the case, emotional states. So if you pet a fearful dog, that's not going to make it more fearful. It can be comforting. But if your dog is jumping or barking or digging or knocking the kids down, you pet them, that's what you're reinforcing. Invading your personal space, and you pet. Nothing wrong with the dog being here if I invite the dog. If I'm eating, the dog's shoving itself here and I'm petting it, I'm saying, yes, I like you doing that, which is not what the message we want to send. So also, good attention and bad attention for the dogs, mostly the same thing. They hear the first word that we say. Inflection matters. So sit and sit are completely different command words. However you want to say it is fine. Just be consistent. Also, anything a dog does in your presence that you don't specifically disagree with, you're saying that is my seal of approval. So in the dog world, not saying no is akin to saying yes, and this is partially how they learn. They're probing, waiting for that no. We think of rules as a negative because of how dog psychology, or because human psychology, when rules are introduced to us. Don't be enforced, don't break a rule to reward the dog. That will confuse them even more. If you want to reward him, pet his belly, take him for a walk, scratch his butt, whatever it is. Don't break a rule to reward the dog. That confuses them. All right, so let's see. I got some wild creature in the tree here chirping at him. All right, so for rules. The rules I suggested was, first of all, not only being on the furniture, order those X mats on Amazon for each cushion to help to keep the dog off it. Train them to go to the dog bed. If you forget how to do that, message me. I'm happy to share the video on how to teach your dog to go to the dog bed. Or you can go to dognoproblems.com and search for dog bed, and it'll be right there for you. Also, when the humans are eating, the dog should be not within 7 feet. When the dogs are eating, the other dog should not be allowed within 7 feet of them, or really even in the room. We'd like to feed Sadie first because she's the older dog. That way it kind of gives her a little bit more hierarchical value and authority. He's still going to challenge her, but we can do some things to help her out a little bit. And she's a good old dog, so we want to make sure we do that. Also, when we're cooking, shouldn't be allowed in the kitchen. You can do the exercise I showed you. Remember to use the bacon and do the setup. So you put the bacon on and you practice by doing your meal prep. And anytime the dog crosses the room, the line, you rush right towards them. Remember, every time they sit or lay down, you take a giant step backwards, pause in between each step and move backwards. At first, you're going to take a step back and pause, step back and pause, step back and pause. And you're going to keep your hips pointed towards the dog. Eventually, you can turn a little bit by keeping your eye at the dog. And at any point they start cross the line, you stop and rush towards them. As soon as they vacate the line, you stop. You don't always have to go to the line, but you never pass the line. And you might want to put painter's tape down so you know exactly where that line is. Also do the out commands. Teach the dogs to go out. So 2 outs. So roll the treat out, dog goes out and gets it, licks it up, say out, then it comes back, do it again, do the next doorway, do it all over the house, then go back to the station 1 and be outside the kitchen and roll the treat in the kitchen. When it licks it up, I say the word kitchen, dining room, living room, den, basement. So now we can direct our dog to go to a dog bed or to go in or out of any room in the house. And then when you're eating, shouldn't be allowed near you when you're eating. We also talked about premax. Premax is a concept. It means that a less desirable behavior will earn you a more desirable behavior. An example for kids is if you do your homework, you can go play with your friends. For dogs, I like to do these in a number of different capacities. Go to the door, tell the dog to sit 1 time. If it sits, as soon as it sits in that 2-second window, I open the door and let the dog go out. If it doesn't sit within 2 seconds, I sit down nearby, wait 1 minute, then I go back to the door and command the dog to sit again only 1 time. The more you say it, the less you mean it, so don't repeat your command words. And if it doesn't sit within 2 seconds the second time, I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes. Next time I sit down for 4 minutes, and then for 8 minutes. I keep doubling the length of the delay till when I sit, tell the dog to sit, it sits, and as soon as it sits, the door flies open. So sitting causes the door to be open. So sitting behavior gets to be the freedom behavior. So that's how you do a premac. Eventually you can do it with both directions of the door. You can also do this sit before I pull out the leash. And don't grab the leash and hold it and say sit. The leash is here. Go to the dog and go where the leash is, tell the dog to sit. When it sits, then reach the leash, dog gets up, pull your hand back and say sit again. If it sits, then reach again. And it gets up again, pull your hand back, sit. And if it doesn't sit within 2 seconds, I would walk away and sit down and not practice it again. That's why you want to do this when you're not taking the dog out for a walk. You're practicing when you have a couple minutes and desensitize the dog from the classical conditioned response of being excited when the leash comes out. So I really will reach 3 times. I reach, the dog gets up, I pull back, I say sit. It sits, I reach again, gets up, I pull back, sit, reach again, it gets up, sit. 4th time, I reach, it gets up, I just pull back and I don't say sit, I just look at the dog. If it sits, I continue. If it doesn't, I would go back and sit on the couch. Now, remember, dogs need repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 2 seconds. So if it doesn't do it within 2 seconds, don't repeat the command. That just waters down your own authority. Just show the dog you missed out. And break it into individual steps. So the first step is I go to where the leash is. Second step is I tell the dog to sit. Third step is I start reaching for the leash. Anytime the dog deviates from what I want, I stop the exercise. We go back to this previous step and practice that some more. So we teach the dog during each step of this exercise, this is the behavior I want from you. After a while, the dog knows throughout the whole process I'm supposed to sit here. I sit here when they stand there, when they reach for the leash, when they pick up the leash, when they attach the leash, and only then do I get up. And so now we've taught the dog how to behave. For the leashing exercise, you can do it for a whole bunch of other stuff. I make dogs sit before we cross the street, sit before meal time, don't let them in the kitchen when the other dog's eating. I guess that's not a premac, that's more of a rule. But look for ways to help your dog see you acting like a leader. Remember, in the dog world, burning energy is like a form of currency, and that the leaders are the ones who enforce the rules. So if you have rules, the dog sees you enforcing them, you get more credit, and the more the dog sees you as a leader, the more likely they are to listen to you. We also went over petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if I wanted to pet the dog or if the dog wants me to pet it. So that comes up and nudges me, it's telling me what to do. Instead of following the dog's order, what I'm going to do is tell the dog to sit. If it's already sitting here, I'm going to tell it to sit here, or tell it to lie down. Don't ask it to shake. If the dog sits within 2 seconds, I'll reach over and pet it under its chin and say sit. If it's a learning process, or I just reach over and just pet it when it sits and pet as much or as little as I want. If I stop and the dog comes and sits over here, I pet it again, well, and it does it a third time, it's saying I'm bored. It probably needs some exercise. So what we're telling the dog is when you tell the humans what to do, you nudge the human, nothing happens. But if you nudge the humans and the human tells you what to do and you do it, you get rewarded. So it's motivated to want to listen to us. Now, let's say I tell the dog to sit and it doesn't sit in that 2-second window. Playing hard to get works great for dog training. So I say sit, dog doesn't sit, 1, 2. I lean back, pull out my phone, watch TV, play a board game, read a magazine, do something else, show the dog I'm living my best life. It doesn't bother me you didn't sit, you don't get the attention. That will make the dog's next interaction more motivated to want to listen to you. If it does sit, make sure you pet it under its chin, remember, whenever possible, and avoid petting on top of the head. Now, I use eventually the dog will start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention after you've done this enough. Make sure you do reward that, otherwise it'll go back to doing it the other way. Use the watchword of paycheck if you suspect someone's petting without a purpose. And even if I'm petting, if I told the dog to sit and it stood up when somebody opened the door and somebody says paycheck, I would stop petting even though I did it right. Say, sit, the dog sits, I sit, I pet it and say sit, and then I tell the person, I asked the dog to sit, you open the door and he stood up and I continue petting, but thank you, because I do forget to pet without a purpose. It's not a gotcha, it's a gentle reminder. Passive training is the other flip side of that. Passive training is waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior. He's a door dasher, he's right here at my feet. If he gets out, he is not coming back because it's a lot of fun for him. He gets the adventure. He's a husky, they're kind of a aloof breed of dog. And then the humans chase me, which is fun and validating as well. So every time the dog comes to you on his own when you're watching TV, pet him and say the word come. You didn't ask him to, but you're rewarding that end result. That will make him much more likely to come again in the future. Even if he's just walking by, as he walks by, come, and let him keep going. If he sits next to you, pet him and say sit. If he lays down, pet him and say crash, chill, or whatever your word is. Come up with a name to feed your dogs out of the feeder. Every time he takes his first bite of food, maybe we say salmon, and the other dog's meatball, or whatever the word is. Again, come up with fun command words. When they drink water, say agua, or happy hour, or merlot, or whatever your favorite cocktail is. Every time you bring you a toy, name all your individual toys. So now you have all these things that you can, better vocabulary for the dog. Now we can teach the dog to leave communicate to leave the room, go to a room, go to the dog bed, eat their food, all the commands. The dogs want to please us. We just do a really poor job of communicating what they can do to please us, because when they come to us, we ignore it. They sit at our feet, we ignore it. They lay down, we ignore it, because we didn't ask for it. But if your kid shares with another kid, you make sure you showcase and spotlight that, because that's an important value. So you burn the energy to tell the kid that. You can do the same thing for the dog. The more you pet your dog for the things you want, the more your dog will offer those behaviors for you, as opposed to the things that you don't want. Let me see. Also for the recall, when he's out, Jet's out here and having a good time, he's done sniffing, grab a piece of that warm chicken, walk out in the middle of your yard, just hold the chicken here. Don't motion for Jet, don't ask him, just wait. When he comes to you, give him a treat and say, come, then walk back in the house. Wait for him to disengage, walk back out, 1 step less. So instead of 20 paces, I 19 paces, and I stand there and wait. He comes to me, I give him a treat, and walk back inside. You will not make it 10 times before the dog is automatically coming to you wherever you're at. And eventually when you get to the door, make sure you, when you open the door, throw the piece in, let him come in and get it, and let him run back out. Don't close the door. Don't try to track him or trick him, he won't come back in. And actually I do it about 5 times, and then if I want to close the door, the 5th time I have him come in, I throw a treat there, he comes and gets it, I throw another treat maybe up in the kitchen, he goes in that direction, and then I would close the door. So it doesn't mean that every time I call you to the door, you're going to lose privilege of going outside. Some of the time, yes, but all the time you're going to get a treat, or a lot of time, and he's more likely to want to listen to you. He also doesn't always drop things. So when he has a low-value item in his mouth, a toy or something, a bone, but not a bully stick or something like that, quietly pull out a treat, go over here, touch his nose, and hold it right here. Don't give him any commands. When he drops the item, don't show any interest in it. Pop the treat in his mouth, and then say the word drop, and then walk away. Or just go back to what you're doing. If you take the dog's stuff, it thinks you're a thief, and then it's much less likely to drop it in the future. So that's called shaping the behavior, and the more that you do that, the better at your dog get. And eventually you say drop it, and you don't even get past the D, and they're spitting the thing out. All right, we also talked about the escalating consequences. I'm not going to go over those on camera because some of you will use them out of context, but if you forget what those are, let me know. Well, this is, I think that's about it. Now, if you have any questions, please make sure you message me. Jet, come here, buddy. If I don't hear from you, I assume that everything is okay. Come here, buddy. Come here. Jet's refusing to get up. We'll see if we can motivate him to get up. Nope, he's just laid back down. All right, buddy, go get that one. All right, so make sure you call and message me if you don't have any questions. Now, this video, the clients of mine that get the best results, Jet, come here, are the ones who actually watch this video. Come here, buddy. Let's not use the camera, knock the camera over with your tail. Go get that one. So what I want you to do is after the session, about a month after the session, come back here and watch this video. You got a lot of drippy on your nose. You might have a cold right now. And so come back and watch this video again, and you'll get some little tips and things that you might have missed. But if you have any other questions, or you want to teach him to run away from the door or have other problems, give me a shout, let me know. I have a lot of videos I can share with you. Or if I have to come out or send a trainer out, we charge you for that, but I'm not going to charge you for phone calls or text. So please don't hesitate. Make sure you let me know. If I don't hear from you, I don't know that anything's wrong, and I'm here to support you. Well, this is my buddy Jet, and these are some tips and tricks, not tips and tricks, but this is Jet's roadmap to success. Remember, when it comes to dogs, everything you do trains them, only sometimes you mean it.